What is going on with Fallout 5? Over the last few weeks, we've been seeing Fallout 5 come up a lot. Most of this from interviews around the Fallout TV show, but in the process, I actually think Todd Howard may have incidentally revealed the location of Fallout 5, or at least given us a pretty big clue. And even just yesterday, we got some updates on the Elder Scrolls 6, which very likely gives us a clearer picture on what is actually going on with Fallout 5, and even maybe when it's releasing. But did you know I'm a chef now? That thanks to today's video sponsor, HelloFresh. I always thought I sucked at cooking, but then I found this one simple trick. Have all of the ingredients pre-portioned and neatly shipped right to your front door with some very easy to follow instructions. And HelloFresh strikes this incredible balance of being both cheaper and more convenient. I no longer have to brave the grocery store, and since you're only getting the ingredients you'll actually use, it helps to keep the costs down. I mean, this meal was incredible and literally only took me 15 minutes to cook. HelloFresh has a bunch of 15-minute meal options, as well as 45 recipes to choose from each week. And if you're pursuing that summer bod, there are even calorie smart or protein smart recipes available. But hey, even in the pursuit of greatness, everyone needs a sweet treat every once in a while, and there I can hook you up even more. If you click my link in the video description or use code JUICE16FM, you'll get 16 free meals plus free dessert for life while your subscription is active. As far as the concrete details we have on Fallout 5, there are actually a few of them. The first came in 2021, where Todd Howard described how Bethesda already had a one-pager on the game.
You know, we have a one-pager on Fallout 5, what we want to do. Again, if I could wave my hand and say, have
Right.
that out. You know, I'd like to find a way to accelerate what we do.
This basically just confirming that they have a rough idea of the big picture stuff on the game, like the setting, probably the major factions, and perhaps a bit more. And I actually think this specific piece of information will become relevant a bit later on, so remember this one. In 2022, we learned that Fallout 5 would release next after the Elder Scrolls 6.
Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and, you know, we're going to be doing Fallout 5 after that, so our slate's pretty full going forward.
That was pretty exciting at the time because we had a concrete timeline, but unfortunately in the next year, Todd Howard clarified that Fallout 5 was coming, but it may not be the very next game after the Elder Scrolls 6.
And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that, that'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay,
That's
well,
like, let me clarify that one.
all right, go ahead.
At some point in the future.
So technically right now it's kind of an unknown. We know the Elder Scrolls 6 is coming up next, but there could be another AAA game before Fallout 5. And that's pretty much everything up until the last few months, where we have some of the new Fallout TV show interviews and a bunch of new mentions of Fallout 5. And the first time this came up, fans weren't that happy. We heard from the showrunners how the Fallout TV show was kind of like their own Fallout 5, with one of them saying, "We didn't start from a place of characters from the game. We set things after. We kind of told ourselves, this is Fallout 5. This is just another installation and we're starting with fresh snow." It seems like a lot of people misinterpreted this one at the time. Some of those Reddit threads saying, wait, so this is replacing Fallout 5? Like they're making a TV show instead of making a new Fallout game? And I mean, yeah, even Todd Howard is executive producing the TV show, but I actually think it's almost the opposite that's happening in reality. That TV show Fallout 5 quote came in December of 2023, but in interviews from the past couple of weeks, we have seen a much clearer explanation. As now, Todd Howard describes how the TV show wasn't the translation of an existing story. It was, what would the next thing be? It just happens to be a TV show. And to me, what that Fallout 5 quote really means is the showrunners considered just adapting one of the Fallout games into a TV show, but realized that wouldn't work out. So instead, they're making a new Fallout entry, a totally new story set in the universe and not just adapting one of the existing games, hence it being Fallout 5. Not replacing Fallout 5 the game, but just the next new story in the Fallout franchise. Except, of course, it's not, and Fallout 5, the game, may be coming even sooner than you think. In some of these recent interviews, we hear from the showrunners how, I think we made Fallout 6. We know all about Fallout 5, we're not telling anyone. And even Todd Howard goes on to describe how, well, there were some things where I said, don't do this because we're going to do that in Fallout 5. And I think this is fairly revealing. We heard how back in 2022, they just had a one-pager on Fallout 5. But we're hearing from newer interviews how they're asking the showrunners on the Fallout TV show to not feature certain things. To me, it definitely sounds like more progress has been made on Fallout 5 as opposed to just having that one pager. And even just yesterday was the 30th anniversary of the Elder Scrolls, and to celebrate that, Bethesda released this nice little blurb on the franchise. Towards the end of that, they highlighted how, yes, we are in development on the next chapter, the Elder Elder Scrolls 6. Even now, returning to Tamriel and playing early builds has us filled with the same joy, excitement, and promise of adventure. We'll talk more about the release timeline later in this video, but to me, this very much so sounds like the Elder Scrolls 6 is in full production and could very well mean that Fallout 5 has recently entered into pre-production, especially as they had to clarify a variety of details around Fallout 5 for the Fallout TV show. And I think I even know where Fallout 5 is going to be taking place, and that may be very relevant to the Fallout TV show and what happens during its story. From this recent magazine article, we learned that Todd Howard did have one very specific ask of the Fallout TV show showrunners: to make sure the series storyline didn't contradict any of the major possible endings of the games, which the showrunners did respect. So basically saying, don't do anything in the TV show that will confirm or canonize one of the endings of the video games, because we have heard how the Fallout TV show is canon. And although this seems high level, there are a ton of mainline Fallout games, there are actually only 2 that don't have canon endings right now, making this a fairly specific detail. For the vast majority of the games, you can deduce which ending is considered canon based off what happens in the next game. Like for Fallout 3, there are certain things mentioned in Fallout 4 which effectively confirm how the game is supposed to have ended. And since Fallout 3 is only 16 years old, I will not spoil that canon ending for you. And the only 2 mainline games where we don't have a canonical ending right now are Fallout 4 and Fallout New Vegas. And I think this could be a gigantic clue as to the setting of Fallout 5. I've lived in New York my entire life, so when I heard that Fallout 4 was originally intended to be set in New York, the best state in the Union, I was ecstatic at this news. They must be saving New York for an epic next-gen Fallout 5, perhaps even on next-gen consoles, after not using it for Fallout 4. And this could even flow together perfectly with that respecting endings request. Which faction is destroyed at the end of Fallout 4, or which several factions are destroyed, would have massive impacts on what happens in New York. Boston is of course the setting for Fallout 4, and just 4 hours away from New York. They're very close to each other. I quite literally just did this drive this weekend to go to PAX East. But as incredible as that would be, I don't actually think Fallout 5 is taking place in New York, even as much as it hurts my own heart. And instead, I think Bethesda is taking us once again to sunny California, and even more specifically, San Francisco. This one has so many things going for it that I would honestly be shocked if it doesn't end up being the setting at this point. San Francisco has already appeared in a Fallout game. It was kind of a side location in Fallout 2. You could go there and do stuff, but it wasn't really meant to be a full-blown epic city. It's partially inhabited by the Shi, Chinese submarine survivors turned researchers that largely stay out of wasteland politics, as well as the Habologists, who are a religious cult based in San Francisco, even before the bombs dropped. But very notably, San Francisco is left quite open-ended. We don't really know what is going on here by the time of some of the later games, like does the NCR have control here or not? Do any of the other major West Coast factions have a presence? So then all of a sudden, the ending of Fallout New Vegas becomes very relevant due to its proximity to San Francisco. Perhaps Bethesda asked the showrunners to leave the current NCR situation rather vague in the TV show, as to not confirm a specific ending for New Vegas, which will become relevant for Fallout 5's plotline. San Francisco is only a few squares away from New Vegas. And that just makes so much more sense with the consideration of the Fallout TV show taking place in LA. The ending of Fallout 4 doesn't really matter that much for the Fallout TV show. It's all the way on the other side of the country, while the ending of New Vegas is directly impactful. Actually, a lot of people assumed the Fallout TV show would canonize one ending because of it being based in LA. And what takes this to a fun fan theory to now my own headcanon is, this actually isn't the first time Bethesda asked somebody else to leave San Francisco lore alone. We also heard in the No Clip documentary that they asked Obsidian to not include a line in New Vegas about San Francisco being blown up.
They could place this game anywhere. In fact, at one stage they had asked Obsidian to remove a line in New Vegas about San Francisco being totally wiped off the map. They wanted the Bay Area to at least be an option for future games.
Which, yeah, that definitely suggests that all the way back during the development of Fallout New Vegas, Bethesda had at least some kind of plans for a Fallout game in San Francisco, and there are a lot of clues that this could be coming. Bethesda has had this history of teasing aspects of the next game in past ones. Fallout 3 had both the Institute and the Synths in-game, and even beyond that, certain characters were carried over between the games. Fallout 4 has a ton of mentions of San Francisco. Kellogg originally came from San Francisco, and San Francisco Sunlights are literally his favorite cigar. A major portion of his memories that we run through highlight this, even giving us a direct look at the Golden Gate Bridge. And remember those Habologist inhabitants I mentioned earlier? Well, the only other place they appear outside of San Francisco is Nuka World as a part of Fallout 4's final DLC. They're a cool, but otherwise kind of random inclusion that make a lot more sense if this is all a Fallout 5 teaser. And I mean, hey, even the Shi technically got some representation in Fallout 4. They had had their skins added in via Creation Club. Even when this released, all the way back in 2019, I commented how it felt super random. It's one of the only times a standout Fallout 2 faction was recognized in Fallout 4, and in fact, now both of the major factions of San Francisco were somehow added into Fallout 4. There, of course, is an interesting component to all of this, as the West Coast has largely been reserved for not Bethesda. Each of Bethesda's own games takes place on the East Coast, and a Fallout 5 in San Francisco would be their first endeavor over the West, except no, it actually wouldn't be. That's a very common talking point with Bethesda moving to the West Coast, but they're already doing it. The fall TV show takes place in Los Angeles, just 5 hours south of San Fran. Todd Howard and likely some others from Bethesda are helping with the show. We know explicitly that Todd Howard is an executive producer of the show, so wouldn't be shocked if, in the process of forming out the lore and some of the story for a LA Fallout, it did help to begin the process of concepting Fallout 5 in San Francisco. That could be set a bit earlier or a bit later than the TV show. In other words, Bethesda is already going to the West Coast with the lore-friendly Fallout TV show, so it makes quite a bit of sense for them to return with a game a short while later, especially if this TV show's a success. If the Fallout TV show ends up doing big numbers, which as of right now, a lot of the content around the show before its release has been doing big numbers, things are trending positively, but this dropping as a blockbuster of a show only makes me think that Microsoft and Bethesda will have further incentive to start work on Fallout 5 as quickly as possible. So that undecided game after the Elder Scrolls 6 seems more and more likely to be Fallout 5 to me, a big portion of that being due to the Fallout TV show. Plus, when you look at how things ended up with Starfield, I just can't imagine they're jumping immediately to a Starfield 2. And we know at least at one point Bethesda was considering this based off them asking Obsidian to not include that line. So great, Fallout 5, I think it'll be San Francisco, and maybe even you agree, but when on earth is this game coming out? We're kind of in this weird situation with Bethesda now where we don't really know what their new release cadence will be. Everything kind of changed with Starfield. They updated their engine to Creation Engine 2. This will seemingly be the base for the next few games, and while they will likely introduce further upgrades with each new release with both the Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5, it definitely feels like the bulk of the upgrade was complete with Starfield, so hopefully we'll start to see faster releases after this one. During Starfield development, they quintupled in size, going from one studio with about 100 devs to now 4 studios with around 500 devs, and even now they are owned by Microsoft, which functionally has unlimited potential support teams. During the recent trial between the FTC and Microsoft, we get some interesting updates though. One lawyer claimed that the Elder Scrolls 16 was coming by 2026. So okay, there's definitely at least one major issue with that quote, and even Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, later on testified that it'd be at least 5 years before we see the Elder Scrolls 6. But 2026 is pretty interesting because this would line up almost perfectly with the leaked Bethesda roadmap that also accidentally leaked during this FTC trial. This roadmap was made back in 2020 during the buyout process between Xbox and Bethesda. And what it shows is a 3-year gap in between Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, which of course would put the Elder Scrolls 6 as a 2026 game, which that lawyer literally said. This will contradict the head of Xbox, who seemingly would know a lot more, but at the same time, it's not that hard to imagine. Bethesda used to release games roughly every 3 years, and now returning to that cadence with an updated engine, a much larger team, and a far larger budget could actually make a lot of sense. Honestly, I would be shocked if Bethesda's next game takes an additional 5 years. And for a release cadence of every 3 years really does happen, that would imply a Fallout 5 release date of 2029 at the earliest, and I genuinely think this could happen. Technically, Todd Howard did say Fallout 5 may not be next, but I just don't see a huge appetite for Starfield 2 right now, unless they go in some other crazy new direction. So yeah, to me, around 2030 does seem like a legitimate timeline for Fallout 5, or perhaps even a little bit earlier. And we definitely could see something else before then. There have been a lot of rumors around remakes over the last few years. That same FTC roadmap also had both an Oblivion and a Fallout 3 remaster slated, and a separate and pretty reputable leak also mentioned an Oblivion remaster on the way, so 2 distinct sources mentioning this. And this Oblivion leak came out before the schedule leaked, so this is definitely some converging evidence here. There have been a variety of mentions of spin-off games being discussed. We've heard rumors of it being talked about at Obsidian, and even in Exile Entertainment, but those are really just rumors and we don't know right now. And even as of just this past month, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 have all gotten updates on SteamDB in the last 30 days, which to me does seem to heavily suggest that those games will be seeing some kind of update or change in 2024. This will very likely be a part of the special anthology that's coming out for Fallout, as well as the new TV show. And if you are interested in learning more about what exactly is going on over there, check out this video.